From January to March 2021, France knew a weird winter to spring transition. We had a big frost period between winter and spring. This led to a bunch of crops in France burning. Buds were starting to form because it was spring conditions. And then all of a sudden, all of these buds just got frozen and burned because of the frost. This led to the French government giving help to the people who lost their crops, which is awesome, but it's not sustainable. Today, I'm going to tell you why our agricultural systems are failing and are on the brink of collapse. Now, the government is looking into how to make the crops more resilient. One way they could do that is GMOs, genetically modified organisms. So they take the plants and they modify their genome, their DNA, and they plant them again and they make them more resistant and more resilient. Another way they could do this and they could handle this problem is by looking at nature, so biomimicry. I went on asknature.org and I found this collection called Resilient Food Systems. And within this collection, I found an article called Plant Species Diversity Creates Long-Term Stability. It's a known fact in biology that diversity makes a system thrive. This is because diversity leads to resilience. I'm going to give you an example of something that may be closer to us. Let's take a tribe of humans. If these humans keep reproducing with each other, they're going to have babies that are more prone to illnesses, that are probably going to be born with genetic diseases because their genome and their DNA is just the same. There's no diversity. So, if we go back to our agricultural system, the resilience of the system is going to depend on how many of its organisms are fulfilling the same purpose. Let me give you another example that's closer to home. If we take an iPhone, if you open it up, you'll find a bunch of cables, a bunch of parts. Now there's one cable connecting the battery to the rest of the system. If that cable fails, my entire iPhone is useless. That's because only one cable is fulfilling the task of taking the power from the battery and supplying it to the rest of the phone. And because that cable is failing, the whole system fails. This is basically the way that we do agriculture today. Our crops are low diversity systems, which means that they will be very productive on the short term. But as soon as a change happens, it'll collapse and you'll lose everything. A low diversity system could work in a world where we don't have climate change, in a world where seasons are extremely regular and nothing changes. There are no pests, no new organisms coming into the crops. This would be a perfect system where low diversity systems would work and the way that we do agriculture today would work. With changing climate and changing conditions, a change could easily ravage your crops and lead to low or no productivity. On the other hand, a high diversity system would mean less productivity in the short term, but would mean more stability on the long term and therefore more productivity on the long term. It would also mean that with changes such as climate change and unregular seasons, these crops, these high diversity crops, would continue to resist and continue to thrive and continue to give you produce. The reason for that is because these changes would only affect some parts of the crops, which means that the rest of the crops would survive and would give you produce. My question now is, why don't we start planning for better instead of for more?